wanted to find a bank with a purpose. I wanted to find a place that would take my money and not use it to cause the financial crisis, but to fix the financial crisis and to help end income inequality.
The people that we employ are usually clients right off the streets. They don't have an account, but Amalgamated is willing to get that started for them.
Their reputation of supporting the working man, I think, speaks for itself. This is a bank that cares for their customers, and I appreciate that.
We were able to access a construction loan through the bank's programs, and that loan has helped us house 28 families in the community.
Amalgamated is a bank that was started for and about working people.
Many of our customers have a deep commitment to advocating for social and economic justice. We share that commitment, and we're not afraid to stand up and say that we need to change some of the way that the country does business.
Giving you everything you need to fight the Trump administration. This is The Bill Press Show, live at youtube.com/The Bill Press Show.
Yes, according to Donald Trump, Democrats are evil. Evil. Yeah. The same man who says that he had the largest inauguration crowd ever in history. You can't believe a word he says, but come on, Donald Trump. Hello, everybody. Here we go. Tuesday, October 9. It is the Bill Press Show. Yes, indeed, the morning after a disgraceful, phony ceremony at the White House yesterday where Donald Trump apologized to the nation for Brett Kavanaugh for all the pain and suffering that he experienced at that hearing where he lied through his teeth. And then Donald Trump is insisting that Democrats are so upset at this that Democrats are going to vote Republican for Republicans in November, and insisting also that Brett Kavanaugh was proven innocent by that whole circus. It is just disgusting. It gets worse and worse every day. And again, where are the Democrats? Why aren't they raising hell about this whole charade, this whole circus, this whole sham? Hey, we got lots to talk about today. Even more than that, yes, Hurricane Michael pounding its way up to the Gulf Coast. Here we go again. And while Mitch McConnell says that Republicans are just so angry over the Kavanaugh thing, they're going to turn out and vote in great numbers, that's not what the polls are showing today. Democrats increasing their lead in taking back the House of Representatives and maybe even the Senate. So, you see, lots and lots to talk about. We need your help. We need your comments. Want your comments. Want to hear from you on Twitter @BP Show. But first,
this is the Full Court Press.
All righty, just a couple of other stories making news today. All right, we don't talk about the NFL much, Bill. You know we don't talk about the NFL much, but
I don't want to.
There was some good news out of the NFL last night. Drew Brees of the New Orleans Saints broke a record for the most passing yards ever in the career. He passed Peyton Manning last night, and he did it in spectacular fashion. It was in the second quarter. He threw a 62-yard touchdown pass. Here's what it sounded like.
God.
He starts in the shotgun, drops back, looks to the far sideline, wide open, Traquan Smith. And Traquan Smith is going to go to the end zone. Drew Brees has done it. You have just witnessed history in New Orleans. Drew Brees is the NFL's all-time leading passer.
He passed the record 71,940 career passing yards. He is in his 18th year. He's 39 years old, so he's not going to be doing this for a whole lot longer. But, of course, as you could tell by the crowd, he was in front of his hometown last night.
How old's Brady?
Brady is, I think, the same age or 40.
Yeah,
I mean, quarterbacks can go a lot longer because they don't grind it out as much as other players. But, you know, the other thing about Drew Brees is, comparatively speaking to other professionals, he's a short guy. And so the fact that he has this record is pretty remarkable.
I love his name.
Drew Brees, as they say down there, Drew Breesiana in New Orleans. All right, so I don't really dress up for Halloween. Do you dress up for Halloween?
Are you kidding?
This can go either way. I think it's a
Been
no
long
for you.
time
Yeah,
since
yeah.
I wore a Halloween.
Well, I don't
mask.
really dress up for Halloween, but there are a lot of people who don't dress up for Halloween, but they dress their
Yeah.
pets.
Oh,
They
dress.
dress
Oh,
their
oh, oh,
pets.
oh, by the way, Lincoln Park, right
Yeah.
near here. Oh, yeah.
Yesterday, the National Retail Federation and Prosper Insights said that listen to this, 31 million people will dress their pets in a costume this year.
God. Oh, God. Yeah.
Can you imagine?
No.
They're projected to spend, listen to this number, $480 million on dog and cat outfits or bird outfits if you want to dress your bird up for Halloween. That's how much people are going to spend on Halloween costumes for their pets. That's about 4% higher than they spent last year. So we've been doing this for a while.
Do they put little like buckets around their necks so they can collect candy,
gotta get candy.
or I don't know, dog biscuits? Or... God.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Women are angry over the Kavanaugh circus, and when women get angry, women turn out and vote. What do you say, everybody? Great to see you today on a Tuesday, October 9. It is the Bill Press Show, and here we are, together with all of you all across this great land of ours and around the globe. Coming to you live from our nation's capital, Washington, D.C., the scene of a just sickening, disgusting, shameful, phony swearing-in ceremony at the White House last night, where the president pulled everybody together so he could give a speech and apologize. Can you believe it? Apologize to Brett Kavanaugh. Oh, the poor baby was seen and treated so rough. Yeah. Allegedly, he tried to rape a girl, and they asked tough questions about it, and he gets away with it, and now we apologize to him. Count me out on that apology, Mr. President. We're coming to you live on YouTube, youtube.com/The Bill Press Show. Joining you, of course, on TV. Hello, Free Speech TV, all you free speech watchers out there. And on the radio statewide in Indiana on Indiana Talks and through the greater Chicago area on the big, powerful WCPT, the progressive voice of Chicago. With all the news of the day, great lineup of guests from Axios. We're going to be talking climate change with Andrew Freedman, who's the science editor at Axios. Eugene Scott from the Washington Post will be joining us as a friend of Bill for our second hour together, and we'll be joined by Zack Beauchamp from Vox, a senior reporter at Vox, who's been writing a lot about Brett Kavanaugh, and also basically one of our foreign policy experts as well. Yes, indeed, it was a disgusting day yesterday. Donald Trump, he has, I must admit, rather successfully, because Democrats have been so quiet, I talked about that yesterday, Donald Trump has rather successfully turned this entire narrative about the Kavanaugh nomination from an alleged sexual predator joining another one on the Supreme Court to a man who was wronged by the Democrats, and the Democrats, not the Republicans, according to Donald Trump, turning this into an ugly partisan food fight, which indeed it was Mitch McConnell that did that. We've never seen such blatant partisanship. Remember Lindsey Graham's tirade at the Senate Judiciary Committee. No Democrat coming close to that. But it was Trump last night, yesterday, starting when he was getting on Marine One to go down to Orlando to talk to police chiefs. This whole thing, he said, was a disgrace.
It was all made up, it was fabricated, and it's a disgrace. And I think it's going to really show you something come November 6th.
Yeah. And when he was down there in Orlando, he talked about it again, and he actually said the people who raised questions about the Democrats, who dared raise questions about Kavanaugh, they were evil.
It was a disgraceful situation brought about by people that are evil. And he toughed it out. We all toughed it out together.
There it is, Amy Klobuchar, Dianne Feinstein, Cory Booker, Chris Coons. Evil. Yeah, Dick Durbin. Evil. Pat Leahy.
He's been trotting this out recently more and more, like just saying the Democrats are the party of evil, and these are all evil politicians. And I think there's a pattern with Trump, right? When he gets on some of his rhetoric, whether it's, calling Elizabeth Warren Pocahontas or some of the other nasty things he says, he sees what he can get away with.
No, he tries these lines out also to see which ones will get a good response.
Yeah.
And then he uses it, and how much he can get away with.
Right. And I guess it was last week when he said his comments about Dr. Ford, the GOP pushed back on him a little bit. And so he sort of faded back from attacking her personally and then shifted it over to the Democrats.
But then he came back and attacked her personally.
Yeah, fair.
Right. But so then he continued in this. So get this. So remember, just so you know what it was all about. Brett Kavanaugh was sworn in at the White House last night, right? No, he was not. He was sworn in by Chief Justice Roberts, and Justice Kennedy on Saturday night after the vote in the chambers of the Supreme Court. And from then on, he was a Supreme Court justice. But they had to have a phony ceremony last night so Donald Trump could star, so Donald Trump could be there. They did it in the East Room of the White House last night. And Donald Trump actually, this is the thing, and I got into this yesterday on the Larry King Show with somebody else too. It's just nuts. We're supposed to feel sorry for Brett Kavanaugh. Here's Donald Trump apologizing for you and me.
On behalf of our nation, I want to apologize to Brett and the entire Kavanaugh family for the terrible pain and suffering you have been forced to endure.
Give me a break. It's a job interview to the highest court in the land. A very credible woman comes forward and says that he tried to rape her when she was 15. Dozens of people who went to school with him at high school and at Yale come forward and say he was a sloppy, ugly drunk who did abuse women and often blacked out. Those are legitimate questions to ask about. We're supposed to feel sorry for him. He now has are you ready for this? A lifetime job paying, I don't know, it's about $200,000 a year, right? For the rest of his life, one of the most respected positions in the entire world. We're supposed to feel sorry for him. Christine Ford can't even get her family back into her own house because she's still getting harassed and threatened out there in California. So, I mean, this whole line that they're going, and Donald Trump continues, it was nothing but a campaign of lies.
Those who step forward to serve our country deserve a fair and dignified evaluation, not a campaign of political and personal destruction based on lies and deception.
Yeah, based on lies and deception. How about the lies, the multiple lies, proven multiple lies that Brett Kavanaugh told in front of that committee and got away with? The fact that he never drank during the week, right? The fact that he never met Dr. Christine Blasey Ford, on and on and on. The fact that he never had anything to do with these torture memos, as we've talked about so many times. And then the worst to me was Donald Trump said, "Don't worry, pal. You are innocent until proven guilty. And in this hearing, you were proven innocent."
Our country, a man or a woman, must always be presumed innocent unless and until proven guilty. And with that, I must state that you, sir, under historic scrutiny, were proven innocent. Thank you.
No, he wasn't.
Historic scrutiny?
Historic scrutiny, right, yeah. He was not, I would admit, he was not proven guilty, but he was not proven innocent either. That hearing didn't resolve anything. It was a classic case of he said, she said, and she said it with a lot of evidence and a lot of compelling, I believe, circumstances. But at any rate, there was no verdict in that case. He certainly was not proven innocent. But Peter, you talked about trying out lines. This is a line that the Republicans have decided will motivate old white men to vote, because their answer to the Me Too movement is to come back to this innocent until proven guilty. So the response to all these women, including the 20-some women who've accused Donald Trump of sexual assault, is innocent until proven guilty. And unless you can prove without a doubt, or the man even maybe admits it, then, of course, they get off with this innocent until proven guilty. So where do they come out of this? They come out of this still saying and wanting us to believe that the women of America who are so pissed off even before Brett Kavanaugh at the Republican Party for the way they have treated women. Remember Roy Moore. Remember Donald Trump and the Access Hollywood. Remember Roger Ailes, Donald Trump praising him. Remember Bill O'Reilly, Donald Trump praising him. Women who are pissed off anyway. Now, Donald Trump and Mitch McConnell are actually want us to believe that women are going to go out now and vote for Democrats because they're so angry at the way Democrats treated Brett Kavanaugh. Yes, as outrageous as that sounds, that's what they want us to believe. Here's Donald Trump yesterday, before he gets on Marine One, saying the Democrats are actually going to go out and vote for Republicans.
The main base of the Democrats have shifted so far left that we'll end up being Venezuela.
Oh, yeah,
this
right,
country would end up being Venezuela.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of Democrats are going to be voting Republican on November 6th.
You know, if he actually believes that, he's out of his freaking mind.
You know,
I can't believe he believes that.
You hear that all the time from these Republicans about how far left the Democrats have gone, how far left the Democrats have gone.
I wish.
When you look, yeah, seriously. But if you look at what the Republicans have done over the last decade and how far right they've moved, look at what it got them.
Yeah. Well, that's true. That is true. Got to admit that. But I mean, this whole idea that there's going to be this Democratic wave of Democrats voting for Republicans.
Get out of here.
Get out of here. And Mitch McConnell, by the way, he used a word down in Louisville, Kentucky yesterday, which he should never use, because if there's one word that does not apply to Mitch McConnell, it's adrenaline.
What I think this has done for us is provide the kind of adrenaline shot that we had not been able to figure out how to achieve in any other way.
Oh, yeah. We got so much adrenaline on our side. We got so much adrenaline. You see all the adrenaline we got on our side now?
Folks,
Mitch.
I'm so jacked up on adrenaline right now. You can't even tell, but I am jumping up and down on the inside.
Get out of here. Yeah, right. It's like Trump saying there's going to be a red wave. Well, just to kind of put that in context today, okay? A couple of little polls that are out today. By the way, this is total BS. Total BS. Look, I mean, just take a look at the women who are running for office today. There are more women running than ever before. I've mentioned this before. Emily's List, great organization, this year trained 40,000 women to run for various offices, running for Congress, running for state legislature, governor, all across the board. Running for Congress today, there are 239 women running for Congress. 187 of them are Democrats. So get just a couple of polls just out today to put it in context. CNN took a poll among people. What do you think? This is after Brett Kavanaugh, okay? After Brett Kavanaugh, are you glad Brett Kavanaugh's on the bench? Do you support Brett Kavanaugh for the bench? 51% say no. 41% say yes. Yeah, great hit, Brett Kavanaugh, really? Yeah, really knocked the American people off their socks. No, turn them against him. That's what the hearing did. And by the way, in September, after the first time he testified, it was 39% against Brett Kavanaugh, basically, and 38% for him. Now, the anti-Brett Kavanaugh has jumped from 39 to 51%. Pro-Brett Kavanaugh has inched up from 38 to 41%. Among independents, very important, 49% of independents today say oppose Brett Kavanaugh. Overall, majority of Americans opposing Brett Kavanaugh. NBC looked at women and women voters, right on the point of Mitch McConnell. Would you vote for Republicans? Do you want Democrats or Republicans to take over the House? That poll shows women for Democrats 58%, 33% for Republicans. That's a 25-point difference between Democrats and Republicans among women, according to this latest NBC poll. On CNN, took a look at women with college degrees. Women with college degrees, Democrat or Republican, taking over the House of Representatives. According to the CNN poll released this morning, 67% of women with college degrees say we want Democrats to have control of the Congress. 31%. Again, a 36-point advantage. So where's this blue wave, Donnie, baby? Hey, Mitch, where's all the adrenaline on your side? And finally, the Washington Post this morning, with a poll out this morning, they took a look at the 69 leading, most contested House races, 69 of them. And how are Democrats and Republicans faring? Democrats have a 4-point advantage across the board in 69 different races, which are held by Republicans today, I might point that out, or they're open seats. 50 for Democrats and 46 for Republicans. And so the trend is certainly going even more so in the Democrats' favor. And the phrase that I think sums it up, we talked about this yesterday, two of them, I guess. We talked about it yesterday, and I think what a lot of people are feeling is don't just get mad. Yeah, we're pissed off, but don't just get mad. Get even. And the way to get even, 28 days from today are the midterm elections. Get even by, as Elizabeth Warren said yesterday, take back the House, take back the Senate, vote the Democratic ticket up and down, and restore power to the people. And that means congressional races, Senate races, state House races, governor's races. We have a chance to really turn this around and get even, get back, fight back on November 6th. I love that phrase. There were a lot of signs that said, remember in November. Remember in November. And you know what? I have a feeling we will. And as several people told us yesterday on the show, that's what motivates people to vote, rightly or wrongly. People very seldom come out to vote to say, thank you for doing a good job. They come out when they're pissed off. We come out when we want to change. When we don't like the way things are going, we're angry, and we demand a change. That's when we vote. And that certainly is a motivation for Democrats today to get out and vote. Please, please, remember. Let's prove Mitch McConnell. Let's prove Donald Trump wrong. Remember in November. Yeah. Meanwhile, a couple of other items in the news. Donald Trump actually invited somebody you won't believe to fly down to Florida with him yesterday. Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein.
Oh, right. Remember they were supposed to meet?
Remember, this is so weird. 2 weeks ago, his head was on the chopping block, right? They had rolled out the guillotine. Rosenstein goes down to the White House after the New York Times reported that he had threatened to wear a wire, or suggested maybe he should wear a wire the next time he talked to Donald Trump, and that he might line up some votes to invoke the 25th Amendment. They summoned him to the White House, didn't fire him because Donald Trump was going to meet with him the following week. That was 2 weeks ago. He delayed that meeting, never met with him until yesterday, and invites him to fly down to Orlando to meet with these police chiefs. So did he fire him? Donald Trump says, no, we actually, he told reporters after he arrived in Orlando, we had good talk.
We just had a very nice talk. We actually get along, and really good talk.
Great, thanks.
Really good
so
talk.
insightful.
Yeah, right. Now, the question is, we don't know whether or not Rod Rosenstein wore a wire yesterday.
Do you think they gave him the pat down before he got on Air Force One?
I'll bet they did, baby.
Yeah.
You know that. You know what it could be? Who knows? I mean, this is like Donald Trump is in love with Kim Jong-un, right? Whoever talks to him and kisses up to him, he's in love with. I think it may simply be that Trump hates Jeff Sessions so much that he'd rather deal with a Rod Rosenstein than a Jeff Sessions. Who knows? At any rate, they had their little.
You know what?
They had their
exactly
little trip
right.
together.
You're
right.
exactly right. There are a lot of people that said, Rosenstein might not be long for this world. He might be sticking around until the midterms. Maybe that's true. Who knows?
Yeah.
What are we doing trying to figure out what Donald Trump is going to do?
Exactly. Can't do it. Well, if you needed any further proof that we have a state-run media today in the name of Fox News, we got it yesterday. Now remember, so Bill Shine, who was the executive vice president of Fox News, and by the way, let's go back to the party of sexual assault, the Republican Party. Of course, Bill Shine, who defended Roger Ailes all these years, knowing. And Bill O'Reilly, by the way, all these years defended these two sexual predators, knowing there were multiple women who had filed grievances against these two for sexual assault, and knowing, of course, and overseeing Fox News paying out millions and millions of dollars to settle lawsuits for Bill O'Reilly. This Bill Shine, of course, is now in the White House as the communications director, supporting and defending and covering up for another sexual predator, the nation's #1 sexual predator, namely Donald Trump. So Bill Shine goes from Fox News to the White House, and yesterday we learned that Hope Hicks, who had the job that Bill Shine has now, communications director in the White House, is now the new director of communications for Fox News. So they just changed jobs. Fox News sends their VP to the White House. The White House sends its VP to Fox News. And you know what? There's no difference between the two.
No. This is one
it's
of those
the same job.
Yeah, this is one of those things that's like a parody of itself.
It
right?
is. Yeah.
Like you could not sell this as a joke because it's so unbelievable. And yet, this is what we live in every single day.
So yesterday she was the communications director for the Trump White House. Today, she's communications director for Fox News. She has not changed jobs. That's my point. Bill Shine was communications director for Fox News. Now he is for the White House. He did not change jobs either. It is all one and the same. Indeed. Now, my favorite story of the day. Save this one. Okay.
Oh, okay.
I fly a lot. And I've had a couple of dogs alongside me on recent flights. I'm not really thrilled about having dogs alongside me. One was a woman had a little dog in her lap the entire flight. It didn't bite me. It didn't go to the bathroom it was well behaved, but just didn't like it. The last time Carol and I were flying together, a woman had a dog that digs up a cadaver dog. A big dog.
Okay.
That they used for searching cadavers and was at her feet.
Wait. So does the dog have its own ticket? Like, does it get its own seat, or it has to be on the? No, I don't like that.
Big dog. And
little dogs, I actually am okay with, but the big dogs, no, that's no good.
All right, that's bad enough.
Yeah.
Alaska Airlines yesterday put out a list of the animals that are allowed as service animals.
Oh no.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, before this is a change because before. They just had a list of what was not allowed.
Wait, so I just want to be clear. Are these the emotional support animals or just, okay.
Right. Okay, now, here's what was not allowed before. They had a list of what was not allowed. The not allowed before passengers could not have no hedgehogs or ferrets, no snakes, insects, or rodents, no sugar gliders, and no sugar gliders, which is a nocturnal species of possum. I didn't know what that was.
Yeah.
But, so yesterday they said, here's what is allowed.
That's oddly specific, by the way. They outlawed those weird things.
Remember in January, a woman tried to go on a plane with a peacock?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Right. Okay. Right.
So those were not allowed, and now they've changed the rules.
Right. So now they have a list of what is allowed on Alaska Airlines. Dogs.
Okay.
Cats and miniature horses.
Get out.
Miniature horses.
What?
Yes. A miniature horse. A miniature horse usually between 2 and 3 feet tall.
Get out of here.
And weighing. No.
Crazy. That's crazy.
Here it is. And weighing between 70 and 100 pounds.
No.
Miniature horses. Now, they also admit that think about it, this is not going to go under your seat.
I was going to say, what are you going to do with that?
It's not going to go in the overhead rack.
All right.
The only place they admit that the miniature horse could fit is standing in front of the front row.
Get out. No.
Standing in front of the front row.
That's crazy.
I guess in coach or in first class.
That's crazy.
No,
that's no good.
I just want to, Alaska Airlines, I've flown you, and I love it's a very good airline. If somebody gets on that airline, somebody gets on my Alaska Airlines with a horse,
with a miniature horse,
I'm getting off.
But
you're paying me back.
So do they secure the animal, or they just stand them up there and hope for the best? Turbulence is a thing.
Tune in. Yeah, turbulence. What we have to have our seatbelt on. Why wouldn't the damn
you got to restrain that horse?
Can you believe it? I mean, they could easily have left horses off the list. How many people have an emotional support animal for a horse? And by the way, what do you do with a horse in your own home, right? Yeah. Does it sleep with you?
Man, there are a lot of logistics. I just
Alaska Airlines
can't figure.
They came out with it. Yeah, yesterday. The official list: dogs, cats, or miniature horses are allowed. Right?
No. I'm not going to fly on an airplane with a horse on it.
By the way, I found this out too. Other airlines allow miniature horses to fly as service animals, including Southwest Airlines and United Airlines.
No.
Which United also permits service monkeys and service birds.
What's a bird going to do?
I mean,
what's a bird going to do? How's it going to help you?
How much emotion and love and comfort do you get from a bird?
Zero.
Seriously.
They're terrible pets.
Yeah. I mean, I just think this whole service animal thing has gotten way, way, way out of line. I know there are a lot of you out there that are going to be pissed off at me at this, but I think, hey, folks, come on.
I will say this.
No. Okay, a dog and a cat, I'm okay with. Anything else, forget about it.
I'll say this.
Little dogs or cats.
Having worked with you for quite some time, you have been very consistent about this. Oh. You have hated the service animal thing from the very beginning, especially on airplanes.
Well, that's the only place that I connect with them, I guess, right? Yeah. I mean, in a restaurant, I don't mind people have a dog in a restaurant. What
do you need to bring your bird on an airplane or your horse? It's crazy.
Yeah, your horse. Crazy. Okay, here's my word. Leave your GD horse home, okay? I don't want it on any plane.
Screw you and the miniature horse you rode in on.
Yeah, right.
And the airplane that your miniature horse rode in on.
Right, okay. Yeah. United Nations says by 2040 we could all be underwater. What's the Trump administration doing about it? We'll find out from Andrew Freedman when we come back, from science editor at Axios. Quick break. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
Take The Bill Press Show anywhere you go. Download our free podcast. Search for The Bill Press Show on iTunes and catch the highlights from every show.
There was an old woman who lived in a shoe. She had so many children. She didn't know what to do.
Did you have a good day at school?
She gave them some broth without any bread.
There you go.
And kissed them all soundly.
Night-night.
Good night. And put them to bed. Hunger is a story we can end. End it at feedingamerica.org.
Awkward. Do I look familiar? I should. You might remember me from here. Here. Or maybe even here.
But an awkward silence can be a great thing.
it can actually be a perfect moment to reach out to a friend and ask if they're okay if they seem down. It doesn't matter how you say it.
You all right?
Everything's okay?
All G?
You all right, girl? You cool?
You bugging dog.
Just show you're there for them. Go on, Kelly. It's easy awkward.
Hey, you haven't really been yourself lately. Are you okay?
Find out how you can help a friend with their mental health at seizetheawkward.org.
Do you want to retire like a champ? Just like legendary basketball star Uncle Drew? Don't do it like that, Uncle Drew! You're already acing the game. You've got your dream ride.
Don't be slamming my door.
Sorry about that.
You just did the same. Gotta get the boys.
Your dream vacation and your dream team. And now you can make your retirement just as legendary.
I get buckets.
Get the tips you need to get on track at aceyourretirement.org.
It's a big responsibility.
Oh, it's huge. I know, it's huge.
And the salary.
Oh my god, yes.
Right?
I mean, like, I was about to move in with my parents, and right before, so this saved me.
I really believe in you, you know?
Thank you. It's nice to hear that from someone.
These are cool. Did you, what did you...
Follow us on Twitter @BP Show. This is The Bill Press Show.
And on a Tuesday, October 9, hello everybody. Thanks for joining us here on the Bill Press Show. Lots and lots to talk about, and it's good to have you with us as we boom out to you live from our studio on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. By the way, some very exciting news here in this these leading up to the midterms. A great new app that is out. It's from the Political Voices Network. It's a new service called leftisright.com. We're there, and Stephanie Miller and Tom Hartman. It's one-stop shop for the strongest and best progressive voices out there. Thank you. Yours truly, Stephanie Miller, Tom Hartman. You can download the app for your Apple device, not Android devices yet. It's brand new, but at least Apple device you can download. Political Voices Network. Look for that app. And the website is leftisright.com. Just started up yesterday, so go there, check it out. And again, it's one place to go for our show every day, followed by Stephanie Miller, followed by Tom Hartman, the best of the best. Before we get into climate change, I just want a little one footnote to what we talked about last hour. We talked about some of the polls that show an overwhelming support among women for Democrats among women over Republicans in the latest polls that are out today. I forgot to mention in that context that CNN shows that Donald Trump's poll number now is at 41%. So 41% of Americans approve of the job Donald Trump is doing as president. Hasn't really changed much since he got there. Among women, get this, however, among women, 61% of American women disapprove of the job Donald Trump is doing. These are the women that Mitch McConnell says are going to go out and vote Republican. Right. 61%. Figure that out. 6 out of 10 American women don't like Donald Trump or the job he's doing as president. That is huge. So much for the adrenaline Mitch McConnell's talking about. We've been at it. By the way, we want to welcome to the studio, as we mentioned, Andrew Freedman is the science editor at Axios, dealing particularly with this issue of climate change. Andrew, it's good to see you.
Good to be with you.
Before we jump in here, we've been at the news of the day for a little bit here. And Peter?
Yeah, we're on Twitter at BP Show, at BP Show. I have to say, we have two different comments from people who are annoyed with us. Because...
Are these horse lovers?
No.
Miniature horse
We'll get
lovers?
to those. We'll get to those.
All right, okay.
But they're saying, I'll just read KG's comment first. If you must play audio of Trump, could you please give a signal before you start and when you're done so that we can mute? Maybe we can tint the screen orange. Thanks very much.
I know, it is disgusting.
Also, Tybornicus says, Bill, the more audio clips of Trump you play, the more I am nauseated and the less I can listen. For the sake of all of your listeners, please reduce them.
Sorry.
I have to say, I've said for a while now, I'm going to donate my brain to science so that you can see the impact of listening to Donald Trump speak early in the morning every day for all these years.
I know.
Has done
I
my
know.
brain.
It's a weak defense. I know. The only reason we do so, of course, is to mock it, to make fun of it, and to show you just how horrible a human being he is. But I guess we already knew that.
Yeah, exactly. Also, while you are checking out our Twitter feed at BP Show, we have a poll up right now. The question is, will the Kavanaugh confirmation and the related events energize the GOP base to turn out on November 6th? As Mitch McConnell
The GOP
mentioned.
base?
Yeah, the GOP base. Will they turn
Vote
out?
no on that one.
All right, so you vote no. 57% currently say no. 43% say yes.
Remember in November.
That's it. So please get out there and vote on this. Some comments on that poll. Tom says the GOP has very little headroom to energize the base. Most of their base already votes, and that is all that they have, which is kind of interesting. And David, with a sort of a counterpoint, says we are kind of living in our progressive bubble, and maybe we aren't paying attention to the other side. Then we get blindsided on Election Day.
Good warning.
Yeah. And
meaning, for the next 28 days, work like hell.
Yeah, there you go.
Can I just interrupt there a little?
Sure.
By the way, that remember in November, I mean, I mentioned yesterday I had a brunch with some friends Sunday. One of them decide they're going to make phone calls for Beto O'Rourke, right? Because he was pissed off. The woman said she was going to go to Virginia and walk precincts. Carol and I last night actually sat down and made up a list of 10 candidates, House, Senate, and governor candidates around the country that we wanted to help, and wrote checks to them last night.
Nice.
10 of them. Just, and, you could do that. If it's $5, just, we've heard a lot about these races, Beto O'Rourke or Andrew Gillum down in Florida, whatever you can do, $5, $10, $50, whatever. Now's the time to do it. Or if you could go there, walk precincts. Do whatever you can. Help in any way you can.
Find us on Twitter at BP Show. At BP Show, you can comment on anything there at any time.
We didn't get any complaints about the horses?
You got a couple complaints about the horses.
Oh, okay. Well, you could ride your own horse on the Alaska Airlines, just as long as I'm not on the flight. All right. So, Andrew, headline in the New York Times this morning: climate warning hits silent wall on Trump's desk. They're referring to the climate report that came out from the UN panel on climate change, 91 scientists, I think, around the world, who said that we're going to be in deep water. I was going to say deep doo-doo, but they say deep water, literally, by 2040. Tell us, first of all, about this report. What does it say? What does it warn? What are the consequences? And what does it say we should do?
So the report was actually requested by governments at the coming out of the Paris Climate Agreement, because small island states view a target of 1.5 degrees of warming as key to their very existence. So they view it as anything above that, and they go underwater forever.
Literally.
Yeah.
I thought it was get picky, but I thought it was 2 degrees.
The target that was really agreed to in Paris, the way they phrased it was well under 2 degrees. So the top level is 2. So what they did was they asked scientists, hey, what's the difference between, in terms of impacts and in terms of can we get there, between 2 degrees Celsius of global warming and 1.5 degrees Celsius of global warming by the year 2100. And what this panel came out and said was, not only do we think that major climate impacts, from rising sea levels to possible permanent loss of Greenland's ice sheet, and part of Antarctica are going to happen earlier than we thought. But we really have, if we keep on our present course, we will hit the 1.5 degree target around 2040 and exceed the 2 degree C target by 2100. We're looking for, right now we're on track for a target of about 3.7 degrees Celsius of global average warming. That's a concept that's hard to get your head around. It doesn't mean that your city or your town warms by 3.7 degrees on average. Really, it means more extreme weather. It means more sea level rise and more damaging storms, more intense and longer lasting heat waves. It manifests itself in different ways that the weather and climate system works.
Crop damage?
Yeah, so one of the big concerns is food shortages and water shortages, which is what the U.S. military, even under Trump, is still concerned about and including in their reports. And it looks like they were saying, the new UN report was saying, our chances of widespread water shortages and crop losses are significant. The chances of those are significantly increased at 2 degrees C versus 1.5. It was a little bit shocking to me as a climate reporter who's read way too many of these climate assessments over the years that the difference between 1.5 and 2 was quantified so precisely and that it makes such a big difference. So we're talking, it's the difference between keeping a lot of our global coral reefs and losing them all. It's the difference between, I think the sea level rise difference is about 4 inches globally.
Whoa.
But if you think about that in New York City, that would be closer to 6 to 8 inches. If you think about that, because different regions see different levels of sea level rise, not the global average. Really, the Times headlines, the Axios headlines, everybody really came out strong because this is the UN IPCC reviewing 6,000 studies and basically concluding that, in the words of Gavin Schmidt, who is the top NASA climate scientist, really what the UN was saying was that the time to act to reduce climate change was 25 years ago. The second best time, as he put it, is right now.
Now, first of all, 1.5 Celsius, what is that in Fahrenheit?
2.7.
2.7. And 3.7 is?
And then 2 degrees Celsius temperature increase is 3.6 degrees Fahrenheit.
3.6, right. Okay. And if it ever got to 3.7 Celsius, that would be... That's the one that gets close to 7?
Yeah, that's about 7 Fahrenheit. Yeah.
Which is what the Trump administration said.
Yes.
Admitted in its own report. Buried it, but admitted it in its own report.
Yeah, basically what you're referring to is that recent...
That was just last week. It came out that they had...
Yeah, so what they basically did was they said for their new auto fuel efficiency standards, hey, if we take back the Obama standards, if we roll them back, the world's going to warm by 7 degrees Fahrenheit anyway, and this isn't going to make that big of a difference.
Right.
It was incredibly cynical and incredibly disturbing to climate scientists because that level of warming would doom coastal areas of the United States from Miami to Virginia to New York to parts of Manhattan. So this was really astonishing that the Trump administration came out and basically said, this is what we expect to happen, and we're not going to really make a dent in that.
You know, one small thing about that I'm always curious about. We always hear about the impacts of of rise of sea levels as a result of climate change on the eastern seaboard. We always talk about Miami, Norfolk, which I think is already pretty hard hit. So is Miami, experiencing that. Manhattan and on up, the New Jersey coast. is the West Coast equally impacted?
So the West Coast is also significantly impacted.
I mean, are we talking L.A., San Francisco, San Diego?
We're not talking. L.A. is not the top candidate in terms of threat level. One way you can look at it is think about West Coast airports. If you've ever flown into San Diego or San Francisco or
California.
Oakland,
I know them all.
Exactly.
I mean, I could, yeah.
So San Francisco International Airport is at high risk of flooding.
It's on landfill.
Yeah.
So is Oakland.
Yeah.
Landfill.
So both of those are in trouble in storms by the 2030s.
Mm-hmm.
And need to figure out ways to mitigate that to keep them viable. San Diego International Airport is in a similar situation because it's pretty close to the water.
Yeah.
So there is a big sea level rise component on the west. There's also already impacts in terms of ocean acidification and the shellfish industry, primarily oyster fisheries, as you get up towards Washington State. So we talk about it a lot in reference to the East Coast, in part because so many of our military assets are based in Virginia. So
Right.
many of our big cities, the big poster child for sea level rise is Miami.
So I keep coming back to crops. I mean, aren't there crops, whether it's corn or soybeans or grapes, that just cannot tolerate extreme temperatures? Pardon me, that last a long time. Maybe you have a little heat wave, but then it levels out. But I mean, if you have a constant extreme level warming, those crops are going to be gone, right?
Yeah, I mean, the effects on crops for like wheat, the main staple crops for the world, the data is very interesting because it shows that as the amount of CO2 warms and the amount of warming increases, crops become less nutritious and more variable in terms of production over time. So you're going to see less, you're going to see a downward trend in crop productivity from the main growing regions of the world. That's the U.S., Russia, other places that grow a ton of wheat and export it.
Yeah. Now, what about the people who say, well, there are technological fixes to this. We can come up with a different strain of wheat, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or what other crops that can tolerate extreme temperatures?
So they're trying. That is something that is going on right now pretty concertedly. The other thing that's really interesting about this IPCC report is that I think they presented a variety of what they call pathways of ways that you can limit warming to 1.5 degrees by doing a variety of things. If you plug in this, if you plug in that, if you scale renewables up, if you scale renewables, at a slower rate, that sort of thing. One of the things that they basically said was we are now at a point where we have to employ carbon removal technology, at least in the second half of this century. So what that means is a lot of the technology that you hear oil companies and coal companies talking about, such as carbon sequestration technology and carbon removal, which are basically machines that would suck carbon out of the atmosphere. These technologies are all in their infancy. Some of them are being used at demonstration plants, some at operational plants, but they're not at a cost level that allows them to be used, more broadly. This is basically saying we have to make inroads in that technology.
Don't they also say that we have to? So what are their main recommendations if we really take this seriously? What should nations be doing? I didn't read the entire report, but I saw one story where it said I believe they said we have to eliminate fossil fuels by 2025 or something like that.
Basically it means coal burning has to stop as quickly as possible. It means we have to turn the global economy around basically on a dime. If you look at what they project for 2030 in terms of emissions, we need to cut greenhouse gas emissions in the next 12 years by about 45%. Now,
that means oil refineries, power plants,
all gone.
All gone.
Yeah, or redone.
And replaced with renewables.
Replaced with renewables, replaced with a mix of nuclear and other technologies.
But it's impossible to get from here to there, isn't it? I mean, in this country, what renewables now are not even 10%. Collectively, correct?
Yeah. If you look where we are and you look where they say we need to go, what they say is it's technically feasible according to the laws of physics, according to technology. However, you and I sitting here both know that politically this is not going to happen.
Right.
Politically, you need to muster the global collective will to get this to happen, and it needs to happen ASAP.
Okay. Now, we know, sitting here, that Donald Trump is not going to do a damn thing about it. Will other countries? Are they?
The other countries that are stepping up in trying to fill a void left by the United States, and we can't technically withdraw from Paris until 2020.
Right.
So if we elect a new president in 2020, one of their first acts could be to stay.
Right.
However,
but
we've
lost
left
4 years. Right.
And we don't have 4 years to lose.
Yeah.
Plain and simple. So what's happening in the U.S. is states, regions, cities, towns are all acting, and the technology is being developed by Silicon Valley and by others. And strangely, as my colleague Amy Harder has been reporting, the oil industry is getting much more serious about investing in carbon removal technology because they're recognizing the need to.
Could be the end of the road for them unless they
have something that's available.
Right.
But Canada, the European Union, and China are basically leading the charge right now, but not in the way that the United States had. And Brazil, having just elected the far-right leader, that's a person who has also vowed to take his country out of Paris.
Yeah, well, he's a Trumper.
Yeah. If that occurs, that means that the country with a huge carbon sink, as they call it, which is the Amazon rainforest, would no longer be part of the agreement. And chopping down the rainforest and all of these things that scientists are very concerned about are back on the table as wild cards. So we're not, I asked one of the leading scientists who tracks carbon emissions around the world and puts out a very authoritative report every year. I said, look, am I a moron in assuming that this is not the direction that we're headed in? And he basically said the UN report amounts to an academic exercise. Politically speaking, we're backsliding. We're not moving forward. And it's going to take a heck of a lot. He believes that the 2 degree C target is not going to happen either. But I don't want to sit here and depress everyone in the morning. Basically, what we're looking at is we probably exceed 2C for a while, and then we overshoot it and use technology and use political will and use the power of the people to see if you can bring it back down.
Well, on that hopeful note, let's close that discussion. Because I do want to ask you just about a minute left. To what extent is Hurricane Michael now heading toward the Gulf Coast a manifestation of climate change?
Climate change, the consensus on hurricanes is basically that it'll make most hurricanes a little bit more intense and wetter, meaning more rainfall from them. Rapid intensification is something that we're seeing more storms do. Michael is predicted to do that today, and it did that between Sunday and Monday.
Right.
This is a big storm. This is a serious threat to the northern Gulf Coast, and it will play in the Florida political races. Andrew Gillum's hometown, he's the mayor of Tallahassee. Tallahassee is right within the zone.
Yeah.
So it is definitely something to watch, but it's not something. I think the most tangible connection is sea level rise increases the damage from hurricane storm surge, no matter what the other climate change impacts are.
All right. Fascinating stuff and troubling stuff. And here's a great big warning. I hope we don't ignore it. Andrew Freedman. Thanks, Andrew, for coming in. You can follow him at Axios.com. Find out more about it.
This is the Bill Press Show. Giving you everything you need to fight the Trump administration. This is The Bill Press Show. Live at youtube.com/The Bill Press Show.
And Hurricane Michael, the monstrous storm, is now a level 2 hurricane. Just about to pummel the northern Gulf Coast of Florida. Florida and Alabama, both issuing evacuation orders. Here we go again. Hello, everybody, on a Tuesday, October 9. So good to see you today. It's good to have you with us. We've got a lot to talk about. As always, there's never a dull media day in Trump world. We'll bring you up to date on all the latest, including this phony swearing-in ceremony at the East Room yesterday, which was cobbled together just simply so Donald Trump could be in the spotlight once again. And not only brag about getting Brett Kavanaugh on the Supreme Court, but apologize to Brett Kavanaugh for the American people, not you, not me, for all that he had to go through. Poor baby, yeah. But the sad news is, poor us, because we've got him on the court for decades. We got that to talk about. Yeah, we'll track Hurricane Michael, and some of the latest polls show that women are particularly pissed off at the Republican Party, and they will get out and vote in droves for Democrats come 28 days from now, November 6th. All of the above, I would love to hear your comments on Twitter at BP Show. Hear from you on Twitter at BP Show. We'll jump right into the news of the day with Eugene Scott from the Washington Post. But first,
this is the Full Court Press.
All righty, just a couple of other stories making news. Let's go to the sports desk yet again because we've got some baseball playoff updates. Last night, the LA Dodgers finished their series against the Atlanta Braves. They will move on. The Braves are out. The Dodgers won their game.
Did they sweep it?
They didn't sweep it. The Braves snuck one game out of the series, but it was 3-1. 3-1 was the final for the series. So the LA Dodgers will move on. They're going to play the Brewers. And last night, this is getting ugly. The contest between the Boston Red Sox and the New York Yankees. We know that they hate each other. Last night, the Red Sox really put a whooping on the Yankees, 16-1.
Oh my God!
16-1. In fact, it was in the ninth inning after the Red Sox had established a pretty solid lead that Brock Holt hit for the cycle. It's the first time it's ever happened in the postseason. What does that mean? I'll let the announcer explain.
All right, here's the Brock Star. What a night he's had.
The Brock Star.
And he swings and rips one deep to right down the line toward the corner, hooking, and it's a home run. A 2-run homer for the Brock Star. And he has hit for the cycle for the second time in his career. A single in the 4th, a triple in the 5th, a double in the 8th, and now a first pitch home run in the 9th, and the Red Sox lead at 16-1.
That's a hell of a night.
Boy,
you got every kind of hit that you could get. A single, a double, a triple, and a homer. Again, that's never happened.
Strike out too? I mean, like this.
No. He had the game of a lifetime again.
Unbelievable.
That's never happened in a playoff game before. So the Red Sox are in control of that series, 2 games, 2-1. When you think about what are the most popular websites on the internet, what do you think is number 1?
Oh boy. Oh, you mean search engine?
Websites.
Oh, websites.
Although you're not far off.
Well, I was going to say Google.
Well, you would be right if you were going to say Google. So let's stick with that. Google is number 1. That is the most trafficked website on the internet.
That doesn't surprise me, but it's a search engine.
Right. But, well, they've got Google News, they've got Gmail, they've got all these different things.
Yeah, right.
Facebook is number 2. YouTube is number 3. It will not come as a surprise to you that in the top 10, 4 of them are porn sites.
Which ones?
Well, I'll let you figure it out.
Peter, come on.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Remember in November. That is the word among those who are outraged by the Kavanaugh confirmation. We have to say that now, not nomination any longer. And the polls today show, in fact, that is the case. MSNBC reporting, NBC reporting, 61% of American women disapprove of the job Donald Trump is doing as president, and that includes, of course, forcing Brett Kavanaugh on the Supreme Court. Hello, everybody. What do you say on a Tuesday, October 9? It's our pleasure to welcome you to the program as we boom out to you live, coast to coast, and all around the globe online on YouTube, youtube.com/The Bill Press Show, on television, on Free Speech TV, and on the radio out in the greater Chicago area, the city of Chicago, and all surrounding suburbs there. Hello on WCPT. So much to talk to you about as we come to you live from our nation's capital. And by the way, a little big news, a little good news on the political and progressive media front. Something brand new for you to check out, and that is a new website called leftisright.com. You can find it by going to the app, just downloading the app, Political Voices Network, PVN, Political Voices Network, available now at the App Store on any Apple device, not yet on the Android smartphones, but any Apple. And on that, you will find it's your one-stop shop for progressive voices on the midterm elections, leading up to the midterm elections. 3 shows up there right now that you can catch, again, by Political Voices Network. That's the new app. The Bill Press Show, thank you. The Stephanie Miller Show, and the Tom Hartman Show. So it's Bill, Stephanie, and Tom every day. Download the app at Political Voices Network. The website, leftisright.com. It's your one-stop shop for the midterm elections. And this is your one-stop shop for the next hour to bring you up to date on all the news of the day with the help of our good friend from the Washington Post, reporter for The Fix there at the Washington Post, the one and only Eugene Scott. Mr. Scott, nice to see you.
Always nice to see you.
It's nice that you're here in this country. You're always on the road every time I try to find you.
Yeah, well, I'll be on the road quite a bit in this country as we head into the midterms these next few weeks.
So Brett Kavanaugh's on the court. He's now on justice. He will hear his first cases today. Mm-hmm. We come out of a pretty tumultuous confirmation process. What's your take on the whole process? Who wins, who loses?
I think overall, I hate to do both sides, but both sides lose, but for different reasons. The majority of Americans do not approve of Brett Kavanaugh being on the bench. And so that puts a dent in the Republican and specifically President Trump's morale in terms of delivering more conservative judges to the bench, which he was hoping would be a win.
But just a little to put a period on that sentence, I guess. CNN's poll out this morning shows 51% of Americans disapprove of Brett Kavanaugh, which is up from 39% in his first testimony. Mm-hmm. So he turned a lot of people off.
He did, and the idea that does not hurt conservatives because a judge is supposed to be apolitical is just not true, considering how political Brett Kavanaugh was perceived because of his own words and his affiliation with the Bush administration, the Trump administration, George W. Bush calling Susan Collins to get him another vote. And so it was very political, and I think people were turned off by that, in addition to the allegations, in addition to his temperament, in addition to some other questions our society has about class and privilege and race and gender. So that was a big loss, I think, for conservatives. The reason I think the Dems also lost, but to a lesser degree, is because many conservatives did not like how progressives responded to Kavanaugh's nomination, and specifically protesters, there were concerns about how men in general were being characterized. So the enthusiasm gap heading into the November election that Democrats had at a much higher rate than Republicans has decreased. I think more Democrats are enthusiastic about voting in the midterms than Republicans based on recent polling.
Absolutely.
But not by the double-digit numbers we saw before. So races are tighter than we thought they would be.
Remains to be seen.
It remains to be seen.
I'm not sure I agree with you on that.
Okay.
I mean, I know there's that one poll everybody quotes, the NPR poll, that showed that. But there's numbers out this morning, I think, kind of refute that. Some of them, let me just discuss some of them with you. I just saw on MSNBC here, among American women.
Yeah.
61% disapprove of Donald Trump's job as president.
Yeah.
That's 6 out of 10.
It is.
Women. And you know what? Women vote.
I was going to say, and the reason why that matters a lot, and because I think I saw a poll that said 51% approve of Trump, but women vote more than men, and that has been the case at least for the last 40 years, and specifically in midterms. And I think that's why Trump has been so aggressive with playing the men are victim, and specifically white men are victim card in these last few weeks, because he's hoping that men turn out. But I don't think men feel more victimized than women feel angry. And so I think the anger that many women are feeling is going to lead them to turn out.
And we've been talking about this earlier. If what motivates people to get out and vote, rightly or wrongly, is when they're pissed off and they want change.
People don't go wait in lines for hours
just to say thank you.
To say thank you, and I appreciate how good you've been to me. I'm going to lose the little leave off days that I have to show my appreciation.
So this phrase, remember in November, is a pretty powerful one, I think. And you know that those thousands and thousands of women who circled the U.S. Capitol on Saturday and were at the Hart Building nonstop for like 2 weeks.
Right.
They're going to remember in November. They're not going to go home and just forget about it.
I believe they will. I think the thing that I'm always mindful of is what we saw happen in 2016. And I actually, a time or two on air, not on this show though, cautioned people that just because people were not vocal about their support for conservatism did not mean that they were going to go out and vote for a conservative. In many of the spaces I did life, not just the traditionally conservative spaces, there were Trump supporters who knew that it was socially unacceptable to acknowledge their support for Trump. And so they went and voted quietly. And I'm wondering to what degree that could happen in November. I'm not saying by a large amount, but I certainly believe it will happen.
Right. So at the risk of offending more of our listeners and viewers, I would like to, with all due apology, play a clip. We've just been getting complaints from our listeners that we play clips from Donald Trump, but it's kind of hard to talk about how bad he is unless you play some of the clips. So here he is, where he started last night. So they had this phony ceremony at the White House last night, where, again, you mentioned about being political. Brett Kavanaugh gave a political speech.
Okay.
Like he did, in front of the committee. But the president starts out by apologizing to Mr. Kavanaugh.
On behalf of our nation, I want to apologize to Brett and the entire Kavanaugh family for the terrible pain and suffering you have been forced to endure.
I mean, Gene, give me a break.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Look, he's got a lifetime appointment to the highest court in the land.
Yeah.
Christine Blasey Ford is still unable to move her family back to her house because she's still getting harassed. And we're supposed to feel sorry for this guy? That's like we're supposed to feel sorry for Donald Trump because 20 women have accused him of sexual assault. I'm sorry. Get me off that train.
The odd thing about...
They're turning him into a victim, trying to.
They certainly are. And one of the odd things about an individual apologizing for an entire group is that you don't speak for the entire group. The majority of Americans are not sorry for Brett Kavanaugh having to answer questions about his behavior in high school.
Yeah, if you're accused of trying to rape a girl when she's 15 and you're 17, asking to try to find out the truth about that and asking questions, you don't have to apologize for that.
You do not, especially if you want to be on the highest court in the land. And I think what will be noticeable to many of the women we were both speaking about is seeing a president apologize for a man being held accountable for what he allegedly did in high school, but not being willing to apologize for mocking publicly the women who accused him of that behavior on multiple occasions.
Yeah.
If any apology was warranted, President Trump's apology to Christine Blasey Ford is what most Americans think was deserved to be given.
For his own comments.
For his own comments.
By the way, also, you mentioned, we talked about the protesters. I was really impressed by the intensity and just the quantity, the number of people, mainly women, who turned out. I was down there one day and they had all these T-shirts on. The energy was just unbelievable. 150 women flew from Alaska at their own expense to meet with Lisa Murkowski.
Yeah,
this is real. And Mitch McConnell and Donald Trump dismissed them as paid protesters and mob rule.
Yeah, I wrote a piece in the Fix that's up today on our website about who gets called an angry mob by Donald Trump and who does not.
A good point. WashingtonPost.com, you can find Eugene's piece.
And so, women who are Americans who vote, who want to see lawmakers held accountable for who they vote on the Supreme Court are considered angry mobs by Donald Trump. White nationalists carrying tiki torches through a campus trying to preserve statues that commemorate people who enslaved blacks are what?
Yeah, right.
Very fine people.
Very fine people, right.
And
people chanting, Jews will not replace us.
Very fine people.
Yeah.
Trump supporters who punch protesters in their faces at Trump rallies get their legal fees paid for, at least considered.
He said, you punch him out, I'll pay your legal fees.
That's what he said. People who sit in the Hart building, as you communicated, to share to express their First Amendment right are considered extreme and dangerous. And so the inconsistency is really fascinating. And so I got that piece in the Fix today. There's a bigger piece, I believe, by Matt Weiser and Rob Costa about the larger strategy the Republicans are using to paint Democrats as an angry mob. And the fear, it's stoking fears that we saw the Trump administration effectively do since the day he announced his campaign, when he decided to continue stoking fears about immigrants and just people that you do not see as well represented in the conservative wing of politics.
Right. And Peter, if we can, at the risk of, again, pissing off our listeners, but just remember why we're doing it, just so we can explain how wrong he is. When he actually, at the very end, turned to Brett Kavanaugh and said, you know, every man, this is one of the lines, I haven't read Bob Costa's piece yet, that they are using to inflame white men, I should say, against the Me Too movement, is innocent till proven guilty.
Our country, a man or a woman, must always be presumed innocent unless and until proven guilty. And with that, I must state that you, sir, under historic scrutiny, were proven innocent. Thank you.
Brett Kavanaugh was not proven innocent.
He was not. He was not. This was not a trial. And that is why many Americans still believe that he is not innocent, even if they don't believe he's guilty.
I admit he wasn't proven guilty either, but he was not proven innocent. They finally just got to the point where they walked away. Republicans walked away from it.
Yeah. And I think what's going to hurt Trump is his selective use of innocent until proven guilty. I wrote a piece for The Fix last week about how
you're on it, dude.
Man, Trump has us working. Literally, my boss is texting me even while working on this show.
Tell him to knock off.
Okay,
you're busy.
I will. My piece noted how the Trump administration and Trump specifically did not embrace an innocent until proven guilty view for the Central Park Five. Which were 5 Black and Latino teenagers falsely, wrongly at least, accused of sexual assault in New York. And Trump called for their death. He called for the death penalty. And he still has not apologized. And
he ran full page ads. We talked about this
at least in 4 major New York papers.
And others.
Yeah.
Right.
And
saying, bring back the death penalty. They're guilty. Kill them.
And they were so wrongly accused that they received, I believe, like a $41 million settlement from the city of New York. These are teenagers. These are Black and brown Americans, quite frankly. And so the innocent until proven guilty idea is one that I think Trump is advocating for people like him. People who are, or at least that is how it's being perceived, because this is not an approach we have seen him taking for many of the Black American men who have been wrongly killed by police officers in the past year.
On that point,
5 years.
Yeah, on and on. On that point, the president yesterday went down to Orlando to speak to the police chiefs. And of course, he's made this point before, so has Jeff Sessions, that any of these attempts to have community relations agreements with police or new community relations deals with police departments around the country and cities around the country, that they want to reverse. That they started under President Obama, and some of them even agreed to others in process. Jeff Sessions is undoing them all or turning them backward. Donald Trump yesterday jumping on that bandwagon and suggesting to Chicago, here's how you can fix your problems with violence.
I've told them to work with local authorities to try to change the terrible deal the city of Chicago entered into with ACLU, which ties law enforcement's hands, and to strongly consider stop and frisk. It works, and it was meant for problems like Chicago. It was meant for it. Stop and frisk.
You talk about a totally racist practice.
But
as we saw in New York.
We saw in New York, Mike Bloomberg, there's all this data that shows that it does not work. The amount of guns that were acquired was not justified to continue the practice. What was also proven was that Black and brown people were disproportionately stopped.
That's where it works. It works for giving police... For giving police officers an excuse for racial profiling.
That is absolutely true. But one thing Trump was right about last night in saying that, or yesterday, was that it was a program that was meant for places like Chicago. it wasn't a program meant for places like the Hamptons, where if you stopped and frisked the accounts of people like Manafort, you would see crime. So Stop and Frisk is designed to find people of color in inner cities guilty of things that they're suspected of being guilty of. It's Stop and Frisk is not designed for people who may get, I don't know, $413 million from their father illegally in tax fraud, which would be criminal as well. And so Stop and Frisk is literally pat down in these urban areas. It's not patting down the financial records of people who are more likely to vote for Trump.
By the way, whatever happened to that story about Donald Trump getting Donald Trump being proven once again a total fraud, that this myth that he's been putting out there that I got a teeny-weeny $1 million loan from my daddy, and I built it myself into a $10 billion empire. Yeah, he got $413 million from his father, and then through a whole bunch of tax scams was able to avoid paying taxes until today.
I thought what was most telling was when Sarah Huckabee Sanders was asked after she called the story false, which parts were false. She could not specify, would not specify. And I don't think it went by the wayside.
She also, I just remembered, she said the New York Times should apologize to Donald Trump. Because he's the victim. Again.
And I really do wonder, seriously, not some tit for tat, when do Trump aides think Trump should ever apologize? They know when Jamel Hill should apologize, the New York Times should apologize, Americans should apologize, Democrats. When should Trump ever apologize?
He will never apologize for anything.
I know he will never. He has made it clear that you don't. But these aides who seem to be so aware when everyone else should apologize, when do they ever think the president should apologize?
No.
It doesn't seem like they have an example.
But isn't it stunning that article, which was an exhaustive piece of investigative reporting.
It was.
And I read every one of the 14,000 words in it.
You read and write more than almost anyone I know.
But
goodness.
It was stunning in its specificity, and yet it disappeared. It had a shelf life of like 24 hours, if that.
Yeah,
why? Because it got blown away by Kavanaugh?
I think that's part of it. I mean, Kavanaugh was a huge story. I mean, I was monitoring our website traffic. Believe it or not, the Washington Post writes so much stuff besides what's happening in Trump world every single day. But that's where people were.
I know. Yeah.
And secondly, I know this makes some people uncomfortable, but the Donald Trump's financial issues have been written about exhaustively beyond what people seem to be aware. There was a lot of news in this story, but all of the talk about wanting to see his tax returns rooted in the idea that Trump was behaving unethically related to his finances. And so
this story proves it.
Yeah, this story proves it. But Republicans who voted for him, to some degree, had already determined whether or not they cared.
Yeah.
And Democrats who voted against him had determined whether or not that was already a concern of theirs. What I'm most interested in, we see in that story that for years, for decades, Fred Trump, Donald Trump's father, had given money to his kids very often, at least perceived illegally, to help support, not just to make them rich, but to help support President Trump's failing businesses and his unsuccessful attempts at making money himself. It wasn't like Donald Trump, though, after the money stopped coming from his father, after his father died, became this excellent businessman. Money has continued to come into Trump organization. The question is, where is this new money coming from? And that is why many people have been concerned about Trump's relationship with Russia and banks in Germany and other donors that could be illegal.
I think we know where the new money is coming from. In fact, Donald Trump Jr. once famously said that they didn't
said it.
He said it. Donald Trump Jr. said, "We're not worried about this recession because we got the Russian money."
That's what they said.
That's what's keeping us going. Right.
That's what they said.
I have to ask you about your colleague, Jamal Khashoggi.
Mm-hmm.
I saw a little, I think it might be in the front page. I don't know. I saw either your paper or the New York Times.
Yeah.
A video of him, a shot of him walking into the Saudi consulate in Istanbul last week. to get this document that he needed to prove that he had been divorced, and so he could marry his fiancée, who is Turkish, who was waiting outside for him. He's never been seen since.
Yeah, he has not. And it's been heart-wrenching watching the global opinions team that worked closely with him just process what could have possibly happened, what we fear has happened.
He was a contributing columnist, I guess, to the Post,
to the
right?
Global Opinions page.
Global Opinions page, yes.
And Karen Ataya, his editor, someone I communicate with regularly, and you know this as you're a longtime journalist. Like, you're working with these people every day. You build relationships with these people, and especially when you're talking about the subject content he wrote about is very personal. And so you learn about people's lives and their own challenges, and you live their lives with them.
And he was fearless in his criticism of the Saudi leadership.
He was, which is always so fascinating to me because, you know, I get hate mail every day. You get hate mail as well, and the tweets and all that kind of stuff. But the level of hate that some international journalists deal with, our situations pale in comparison.
Entire governments, right?
Absolutely. No protections. Everything is a threat. This was a government building that he walked into.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it's very painful. It's so heart-wrenching, and it's a reminder. It's why so many people fight about how the press's rights in this country have to be protected. And while there are no clear threats to that degree that we fear in this moment, we don't want to get anything close to that.
And oh boy, here we go again. I'm sorry, we have to play Donald Trump again.
He's not sorry.
But his comment yesterday about Mr. Khashoggi was so cavalier, I thought. Remember, this is a president, of course, whose first trip overseas was to go to Saudi Arabia, who has, even when Mohammed bin Salman locked up all of his political enemies and kept them hostage for a couple of weeks and took their money away and took their jobs away, Donald Trump just said that proves what a strong leader he is, right? Yeah. And so there's no way he was going to criticize him when he was asked yesterday by reporters on his way to Marine One what his reaction was to the disappearance of Mr. Khashoggi. Here's the president.
I am concerned about it. I don't like hearing about it. And hopefully that will sort itself out. Right now, nobody knows anything about it, but there's some pretty bad stories going around. I do not like it.
Sort itself out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Boy, that's
the leadership we're looking for.
Yeah, right.
It's a hands-off approach. And you know, we don't know all of the details that happened to Jamal. We're still trying to figure that out. And Trump did just say he did not like it. It was not as specific as we would have liked it to be. But I guess to someone like me, it's a reminder of the number of times the Trump administration has suggested that journalists who write things that aren't fitting to an administration should be locked up, or at least should be fired, or should face some type of consequences.
Yeah, change the libel laws, and so they can't get away with it. Yeah, right.
Obviously that is not anywhere near what we fear happened to Jamal, but it's closer to it than it should be.
Yeah, you know, and again, if it were some protester at the U.S. Capitol, Donald Trump would be condemning the violence, right, or condemning this, and why these words. He said he didn't like it, but he was hardly condemning what we think might have happened there in Istanbul. Eugene Scott's with us here as a friend of Bill, so stay tuned, and we will take a quick break. Gene and I will be joined by Zack Beauchamp when we come back here. Zack Beauchamp, senior reporter for Vox. Stay tuned. Tuesday, October 9.
Take The Bill Press Show anywhere you go. Download our free podcast, search for The Bill Press Show on iTunes, and catch the highlights from every show.
In 4 days. There was an old woman who lived in a shoe. She had so many children. She didn't know what to do.
good day at school?
She gave them some broth without any bread.
There you go.
And kissed them all soundly.
Night night.
Good night. And put them to bed. Hunger is a story we can end. End it at feedingamerica.org.
Awkward. Do I look familiar? I should. You might remember me from here. Here. Or maybe even here. But an awkward silence can be a great thing. It can actually be a perfect moment to reach out to a friend and ask if they're okay if they seem down. It doesn't matter how you say it.
You all right?
Everything's okay?
All G?
You all right, girl?
Oh,
you cool?
You bugging dog.
Just show you're there for them. Go on, Kelly. Susie Awkward.
Hey, you haven't really been yourself lately. Are you okay?
Find out how you can help a friend with their mental health at seizetheawkward.org.
Do you want to retire like a champ? Just like legendary basketball star Uncle Drew? Don't do it like that, Uncle Drew! You're already acing the game. You've got your dream ride.
Don't be slamming my door.
Sorry about that.
You just did the same. Gotta get the boys.
Your dream vacation and your dream team. And now you can make your retirement just as legendary.
I get buckets.
Get the tips you need to get on track at aceyourretirement.org.
It's a big responsibility.
Oh, it's huge. I know, it's huge.
And the salary.
Oh my god, yes. I mean,
Right?
like, I was about to move in with my parents, and right before, so this saved me.
I really believe in you, you know?
Thank you. It's nice to hear that from someone.
These are cool. Did you, what did you...
This is the Bill Press Show.
Hey, how about it? Here we are on a Tuesday, October 9. It is the Bill Press Show. We are, as always, in our little hideaway here on Capitol Hill, booming out to you all around the globe, particularly coast to coast here in this country, on online, on radio, on television. Good to have you with us with lots and lots to talk about. As always, there's never a dull news day in Trump world. Eugene Scott here with us as a friend of Bill the entire hour from the Washington Post. Eugene, always good to have you with us.
Always good to be here.
And we're joined by a mutual friend, Zack Beauchamp from Vox, who covers all kinds of things. He used to be, still is, one of our foreign policy gurus, but also he's been off in Kavanaugh world and
oh yes,
all
unfortunately
kinds of
I
other
have
stuff.
been.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, as much as we like to talk about Kavanaugh, I want to start out getting your comments, both of you, on a couple of other items in the news today. Okay,
hit me.
One of them is this, that Tom Perez announced yesterday, the chairman of the Democratic National Committee, that they are lining up the debates for Democrats who are running in 2020, and we are going to see the first Democratic debate in the spring of 2019.
Honestly, I thought that
the hell?
I thought that the 2016 primary still wasn't over. So, like, starting the 2019 primary, it just feels a little early.
Feels early to me. Don't you think, Eugene, maybe they could push it back a little bit? Huh?
It feels early because it is early. That's at least a year and a half ahead of the election. And it's really interesting. I mean, you really have to wonder what impact this is having on voters in terms of fatigue.
I think it turns them off.
Yeah, yeah. And if we're always in an election zone, I think, or mode, should I say, we can expect some people to just tune out completely, and that is not something that the Democratic Party can handle.
Yeah.
No, I find this interesting because if you look at it in comparative perspective, right, other countries, They don't have campaigns that last multiple
No,
years.
England has like 6 weeks maybe, or 2 months or something.
Exactly.
Right?
And the parliament is stable for the rest of the year. If there's an inability to legislate, then they call a new election and then it's campaign season. There aren't these multi-year primaries that come in advance. There are occasional internal contests, but they don't last this extended period of time when it feels like, honestly, can you remember a day up into and including the day after election day when it didn't feel like we were already starting the next campaign?
Yeah.
Like I can't.
Yeah. And it's, obviously not everyone would have declared by this first election. And you have to, first debate. And you have to wonder what strategies candidates are using. Like getting in early gets you more name recognition if you don't have a lot, but it also gets you more coverage. And more coverage can be bad coverage.
Trump figured this out. Remember, it was not long into his administration, just a couple of months, that he went out on a campaign event. He went, I forget where it was that he went, and they said, this is paid for by Donald Trump for president 2020.
He's been running.
This is a campaign event. And they just completely naked about it. They
He's
just
been
said,
running
this is what we're
since
doing.
the day after the election. Well, since the day he was sworn in, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
For re-election. But so a couple of things about this, because it really pisses me off. One is, there's not a stage in America big enough to handle all the Democratic candidates who are running.
Now.
So, I joke about this, but the Republicans had their varsity and their JV debate. I think the Democrats are going to have varsity, JV, and middle school, But so how do they choose who's in the varsity debate? Here's where it's really, I think, another thing that's wrong with this point. They choose them according to name recognition.
Right.
So you automatically are working against people who might be the strongest candidate but doesn't yet have as much name recognition. So name recognition means Joe Biden, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, probably. Those three for sure, right?
Yeah, for sure, yes.
Right? And
Cory Booker,
I was
Kamala
about
Harris.
Cory, Kamala.
Yeah, depending on where they put
Yeah.
it. But there are other possible candidates. Like, let's say if Beto O'Rourke beats Ted Cruz, he
Right.
could be a strong candidate.
He could be.
Andrew Gillum, if he
Gillum,
wins.
I was going to say Gillibrand.
You never know who could emerge. And so the system works against people like it used to be able to. You get out there and you develop your message and you win a few primaries and then, you emerge. But this is top down.
Yeah, I also worry about how an extended debate season affects warring within the Democratic Party. And that I think would definitely hurt and turn off voters.
I think you put your finger on it, though. Voter fatigue for sure. If you start in April, let's say, I don't know exactly when the first debate, I don't know whether they've set a date yet, but let's say you start
It's like
April
6
2019.
months.
Oh my God.
Wait, no, it's 18 months.
What year are we in? I'm saying 6 months from now.
Oh, yeah.
But they're talking about doing these debates in the first quarter of next year.
Oh, wow. That could be
March.
So if you start in March, let's say 2019, and you're voting in November 2020.
Oh my God.
No, give me a break.
My head is already pounding.
No, I can't do this. I don't want it.
Zach's going to just walk off.
Can they just make policy?
There was, back to the different levels, there was only one candidate that was able to graduate, as I recall, from JV to varsity, and it was Carly Fiorina.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, because I remember there was a moment where the number 1, 2, and 3 Republicans polling, and maybe not in this order, but I think so, briefly were Donald Trump, Ben Carson, and Carly Fiorina, and it just showed how much Republicans were looking for an outsider with no government experience who could change things.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So we got that. We've got that covered now. The next topic here, I want to get you coming on. So, boy, how things change. Hope Hicks was the communications director at the White House. Now she's communications director for Fox News. Bill Shine was communications director for Fox News. Now he's communications director for the White House. Did either one of them change jobs?
No, and that's why, you saw some tweets that said that Fox News is almost officially becoming the fourth branch of government.
I'd say it's a little different because Hope Hicks' new job technically is not the Fox News comms director. She's running comms for all of Fox, which includes the movie studio, sports. Yeah, it's a broader job, but it's clear why she was hired for that job. It's because of the connection to the White House.
Does include Fox News and Fox Business.
Yes, that's right.
So that's where she's going to be spending her time. I think the fact that they hired her indicates that they want somebody particularly in that division, handle those
No,
divisions.
I mean, absolutely. With all due respect to Hope Hicks, we know she had a PR background before she got on the campaign, but the idea that she could be the most qualified and experienced PR professional of the applicants makes people want to see who the other applicants were, which of course we will not. The weight that she brings because of her connections to Trump world probably made her the exceptional applicant.
I mean, it really, we have to accept the fact that if not a fourth branch of government, that Fox News is the state-run media today.
Yeah,
right? I mean, 100%.
I was reading a piece. It was an essay in the New York Review of Books by Christopher Browning, who is a very famous historian of the Holocaust, drawing comparisons between sort of pre-Nazi era and the Nazi era.
I saw
and the
that
current
piece.
one in the US.
Yeah,
it's a great essay. It's not all alarmist and crazy in the way that you'd expect a Nazi comparison to be, because Browning is this really sober, serious historian, like really one of the deans of Holocaust studies. And one of the interesting points that he makes is the comparison between the role of Fox News today and the propaganda information ministry in the Nazi era. Yeah. And the point, the way that he describes it is it's a privatized version of the traditional state propaganda outlet, which is not a frame I had used before, but it's almost a perfect encapsulation of the political era we're living in, right? We don't have state-run media outlets in the obvious, hilarious propaganda way in Western countries that are experiencing trouble with democracy. We have it outsourced to friendly private actors, and you see this in other, or rather in pseudo-authoritarian countries like Hungary, where they do have oligarchs who own the private media and they run it on a slavish state-run line, right? This is not the way that things are supposed to operate in a democratic country where you have a massive media infrastructure that's aligned with the government and will do anything it can to defend it. And the fact that the comparisons I'm drawing are literal Nazi Germany and a country whose democracy has functionally collapsed really should concern us about the role of Fox in our public discourse.
Yeah. Absolutely. I was, watching the Kavanaugh swearing in last night, and the number of not Fox partisan contributors, but Fox hosts and anchors who were there taking selfies was mind blowing. Before the Post, I worked at CNN, and I can't imagine if Anderson Cooper or Aaron Burnett, these primetime hosts, had taken.
Who was there?
Laura Ingraham, of course.
Yeah.
David Bossy said the name.
David Bossy.
Yeah. I don't watch Fox as much as I probably should.
He's a contributor. He's a Trumper. I mean, he's part of the Trump campaign operation.
And it's
deputy campaign manager, I believe.
And nobody's surprised that Laura's a supporter of Trump. But I mean, the double standard, it's frustrating. As someone who I imagine you get this as well. It's often talked to by critics about media bias in our tweets. That's where your attention should be when you see hosts supporting candidates and trying to advise the president.
But and again, just a final point on this, I guess it's not this pathway or the revolving door between the Trump White House and Fox. I mean, this is not the first case of this at all. I mean, Larry Kudlow was there because he saw him on Fox. He wanted
Gorka.
Yes.
Sorry, I just love his voice. And he was on Fox earlier.
Right. Gorka. And also, he wanted to hire Joe DeGenova at one time because he saw him on Fox. Ron DeSantis in Florida, he supported him for governor because he saw him on Fox.
Yeah.
I mean, right. And others who've tried to get jobs from Fox. All right, back to Kavanaugh.
Yeah.
And one thing that, Eugene, you and I didn't talk about earlier is the impact that this has had when more people are raising this issue. And, Zach, you've written about this, about the impact that this has on the court itself, the reputation of the court, and the credibility of the court. And I just want to begin this conversation by going back to the year 2000. Justice John Paul Stevens at the time, in his dissent to Bush v. Gore, quote, concluded with this phrase. One thing, he said, we may never know. Today, time will one day heal the wound to the confidence in the court that's lost. One thing, however, is certain. Although we may never know with complete certainty the identity of the winner of this year's presidential election, because they interrupted the count, The identity of the loser is perfectly clear. It is the nation's confidence in the judge as an impartial guardian of the rule of law.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty powerful stuff.
Indeed.
And boy, if it was true then, it's true today.
Well, it's interesting because it actually reflects in the polls, right? So Gallup does this annual survey of how much people have trust and faith in the Supreme Court. And in the 90s, it would be in the 40s and 50s of people saying they have a lot of support. And then it's gone down since then, since 2000. And now it's in the 30s pretty routinely.
Started then, yeah.
Started right then. And now that wasn't a complete collapse in the court's legitimacy, but it's clear that Bush v. Gore had this permanent impact in changing the way that people thought about the Supreme Court, at least on the left. And now you have, well, the Supreme Court has 2 justices who have been accused of sexual harassment and or assault multiple times. 2 justices that were appointed by a man who's been accused of sexual assault and harassment. And these are the people that are going to be voting possibly to overturn Roe v. Wade, the most cherished accomplishment of the American feminist movement. How on earth can the court be perceived as a neutral, nonpartisan, representative institution in a world where this, 40% of the men on the court, not 40%, third, but have been accused of sexual assault?
Yeah, I mean, I think the idea that these courts were ever as neutral as is communicated often was always a bit mythical. I mean, the idea that that justices are nominated by a president, most likely, and in our history, always the case, a president is going to nominate a judge who is more in alignment with their ideas politically than not.
Right.
And so, and as I've written about for a while, the confidence in the judicial system is even lower when you control the numbers for people from marginalized communities, right? So women have less confidence in the courts. Black people have less confidence in the courts. Queer people have less confidence in the courts because these courts have not historically protected their rights as long as they have protected the rights of white people, of men, of straight people. And so there are always these fears and concerns when you see a president nominating another justice who does not regularly advocate for these communities that maybe have just gotten some of the rights that other groups have had for decades, if not centuries.
Right. And to your point about the court always somewhat political, absolutely correct. At the same time, we have never seen such an overtly partisan nominee as Brett Kavanaugh, who goes on, the sexual assault allegation comes out. He goes on Fox News, just like Bill Clinton did, right? Like Richard Nixon did, goes on television to with his wife sitting alongside him to clear his name. That's what political candidates do. He gets up in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee and does this rant about blaming the Clintons for undermining his nomination, and then attacks the Democratic judges and threatens them and says, "What goes around comes around."
He did.
I mean, totally. And then last night's phony swearing in is the same thing. He gives a speech like a political candidate.
He feels like an actor, honestly, or a politician, I guess. Obviously,
that's what I'm saying.
But
I mean, he really does come across, I think, as a political candidate.
And I think that's what a lot of Republicans wanted. I mean, some of the conservatives who held their noses allegedly and voted for Trump were able to breathe a bit easier when they saw Trump make public that list of judges he nominates to courts from the Federalist Society. And so the Federalist Society is not in the business of getting people on the benches who will be apolitical. It's the exact opposite, right? They want people on the bench who will be among the most conservative judges possible. And it's been so fascinating just watching this whole debacle at worst because conservatives over the past at least 10 years that I've been watching politics and courts have been very vocal about their disgust for activist judges. But the reality is activist judges appear to only be a concern for conservatives if they are not conservative.
Well, we just talked about Bush v. Gore, the most activist decision, I think, in the history of the court, where they actually interrupted a presidential election and stopped the state from counting its own votes.
Well, it's weird, right? This language.
Activist judges.
Yeah. Well, that language, it's a relic from the 70s, from the Warren Court, right? Back when the court really was establishing new rights for minority groups, right? And that was sort of the raison d'etre of it. abolishing the death penalty temporarily and so on. And so the whole conservative legal movement has as its origin story a backlash to this kind of what they called activist non-constitutional rulings. Originalism is a way of being like, you guys have gone beyond the text, right? We need to go back to what it was. But now the tables have turned, and all the activism and all the making up of new doctrines and interpreting the Constitution in extremely creative ways. Look at the Obamacare case. There has never been an activity-inactivity distinction in the U.S. Constitution or in American jurisprudence. They made that up to be able to invalidate the individual mandate, right? This was, if there is a clear example of activist jurisprudence, a clearer one than this one, I can't think of it.
So now people are saying, well, how can Justice Kavanaugh, we have to say now, handle certain cases, particularly for cases brought by Democratic senators to challenge a particular law or whatever, or some of these things that he has that he talked about. How could he not recuse himself? And yet, Eugene, I'm not an expert in the Supreme Court, but I believe it's up to each justice to decide when to recuse and when not to recuse, right?
Yeah.
They can't be forced to recuse themselves.
No, and I mean, there's no reason to expect him to recuse himself.
Because he's a true believer.
Yeah,
right?
and if he would have, if he desires to recuse himself, we would think he would have answered that question by now because it's been out there. And if he would have, I don't know that if he would have recused himself, he would have been nominated, considering Trump's frustration with Jeff Sessions for recusing himself now. Trump wants to get people in positions of influence and high power who will support him and his vision.
Mm-hmm. All right. Now, can either of you explain Donald Trump's sudden buddy-buddy relationship with Rod Rosenstein? So they...
I don't know.
I mean, 2 weeks ago, the guy's head was on the chopping block, and yesterday he's flying on Air Force One, and they had a really good talk.
Yeah, I mean,
it seems like they had a good meeting last week is sort of my read of it. I don't know if that's yours.
Yeah, I mean, and it's so funny because remember I guess it was 2 weeks ago, there was supposed to be a big meeting on like a Thursday, then just Kavanaugh took over.
They delayed it, right, put it off.
Supposedly, the meeting was supposed to be about Rosenstein allegedly, discussing the 25th Amendment with other staffers.
Right.
But that was all hearsay, and there was miscommunication about whether it was said jokingly or sarcastically or at all. And something must have been communicated to President Trump that led him to believe that that is not Rosenstein's intention. And so, I mean, that saved him. But I will say, Trump has said he's still, frustrated with the entire investigation as a whole and that there's been no collusion. And so I would not put too much confidence in like the depth of this relationship because, Rosenstein's job is still to do something that Trump just wished wasn't happening at all.
So here's what worries me, Zach, is that Rosenstein is the guy, when Mueller completes his report, the report goes to Rosenstein. He's the guy who decides what happens to it, whether it goes to Congress or stays in the Justice Department or whether it's ever made public. And the cynic in me says that Trump is trying to get close to him so he can persuade him, just bury that mother.
Or the realist. I mean, that doesn't have to be cynical.
The realist.
We're talking about a president who openly does not like personal documents made public. And this isn't even personal. This is something that the American voter deserves to know.
I mean, to keep that report private would be...
Yeah, I don't think it will be. I mean, I guess maybe I'm the naive person here. It won't be kept private. Or at the very least, it'd be forwarded to Congress, where it'll probably leak.
Where it'll leak.
Yeah, but like... Rosenstein may be flying on Air Force One now and hanging out with Trump, but the truth is everybody has their ups and downs with Trump who is associated with him because he makes decisions based in part on like whether or not he just had a good time with somebody or he had a really nice conversation, whoever the last person he spoke to was. And so they may be fine now. That's not going to last. The next time the Mueller probe does something that Trump doesn't like, and
so we could trust Rosenstein to do what he believes is the right thing to do.
I don't trust anybody anymore, but I would say if I had to bet on odds, I would say there's a better than not chance.
I would be surprised if Rosenstein feels some level of like safety or security or comfort just because yesterday Trump said some nice
He's
things
not-
about
he's
him
not
and got
an
on air
idiot.
for.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I guess I just believe Rosenstein is smart.
Yeah. All right. So how long after the midterms before Lindsey Graham is the next Attorney General?
Supposedly he's working on it. Rumor has it. I mean, the reality is, at the very least, we have seen that Republican lawmakers running for re-election are not going to win their races unless they are on the Trump train. And so he's definitely trying to secure that. But whether he wants to, be in the administration as the AG is something.
Well, he looks like he wants it to be.
I think he really wants it.
I think, as said several times, that was a double job interview, that hearing. Brett Kavanaugh job interview for the Supreme Court, Lindsey Graham job interview for Attorney General. And by the way, Sunday, after leading the charge on Saturday, Lindsey Graham played golf with Donald Trump.
No, the base loved it. His performances.
Can I ask you two a question?
Real quick.
I'm taking Bill's job, but what happened to Lindsey Graham? Remember when Lindsey Graham was a Trump critic in the campaign, and he was this moderate
Your
Republican?
readers should Google that. There's a great piece in the
train?
Washington Post about it last week. What happened to Lindsey Graham?
All right.
Yeah.
That is a question I get asked all the time.
Yeah.
What happened to Lindsey Graham?
Yeah.
Boy, he's certainly going over the cliff. Hey, great to see you guys. Zack Beauchamp from VoxBox.com and Eugene Scott from the WashingtonPost.com. Have a great one, folks. Come back and see us tomorrow.
All right.